Eli Baumgarten, and I'm a pianist, composer, and producer, and I love writing music. I'm from Denver, Colorado. Currently, I play a lot of like live music, a lot of jazz, fusion, just different modern styles, and I also write a lot of my own music. A lot of things rooted in jazz, but I love blending styles. I love taking influence from classical music and film scores, and yeah. So it's really, the composing and the performing are, I think, the root elements of what I do. Oh man, it's like getting back into the memories. I started learning piano when I was like 5 years old, and I went to this place called the Colorado School of Music in Golden, Colorado, and I studied from this guy named Kirk Volak, and he was super cool because he didn't give me like this traditional classical training, like going through books and stuff. He could tell I wanted to write my own stuff, and he like totally supported it and just helped me explore that side of things. And we would learn songs, like some classical pieces, but then he'd be like, write something based off this, like, and that was the coolest thing. And he taught me for 12 years, something like that. So yeah, I do. I have a degree in jazz piano performance. The studying for it was interesting. It was, yeah, I think at the time, before I did the degree, saw it as like the way to expand my ability no matter what I wanted to do musically. I was like, oh, if I can learn jazz, I can do anything. And I don't know that that's entirely the case looking back on it, but it did make me a much better musician, and I met a lot of cool people, and I think the process was fun. As a degree, I don't know, I sometimes think about that, the utility of it, but I think the actual process of going through music school taught me a lot about myself and about music, for sure. I think the very first piece of music I wrote was when I was 8 years old, and it was called Skulls of Bones. It's very interesting. Yeah. I feel like I'm interpreting that in two ways as to why did I start in the beginning and why do I do it now. And I think in the beginning I was just like enthralled by the idea that you could like create some sort of emotional world. It could be whatever you wanted, and that was so exciting. And then the process of doing that and feeling it come together, you just feel the most powerful, like inspiring feeling from that. And then continuing to do that over and over and seeing yourself evolve and how you write is such an interesting process. And now, as I get older and become more of like an adult and stuff, like there's many other parts of life that are also important now, and I have to continually remind myself of that initial reason for writing. And it always comes back. I always come back to it. I'm like, oh, this is it right here, I think Into Nowhere specifically, well, it was very inspired by my own life events and things that happened, and I traveled to Australia and studied there, and that just traveling made me so, it just so much happened, so many emotions happened through traveling, and it gave me so many ideas musically. It just made me feel the need to write something, and then feeling that inspiration, and then acting on it and writing music, and then letting the music take over and lead me wherever it led me. And it turned into Nowhere. And I have a story that goes with it, but I think I kind of made the story after I wrote the music and contextualized it with my life experience. Yeah, it's a good question. On the drums, there was Alejandro Castaño. He's an amazing drummer from CU Boulder music program that I studied in. Um, Eddie Ness on the bass, also amazing musician from Boulder. And then I got these two classical string players to play with me. The violinist was Sam Jarvis, and the cellist was Louis Saxton. And working with them was incredible. Mm. I love, well, first of all, I love film scores, and they don't all have strings, but a lot of the classical ones do. And going deeper into that, I just love the expressiveness of strings, and like I don't think there's any other instruments to me that quite have the range of expression that strings do. And I was thinking, could that be combined with a jazz trio? And I started listening to this musician named Claude Bolling, who literally does that. He has albums with jazz trio and cello, or jazz trio and violin, and I just like fell in love. And then I was like, oh my gosh, this I have to make something like this. And I kind of combined that with this artist I also love, Bill Lawrence, and he's the pianist in Snarky Puppy, which is like my favorite band ever. Um, but his original music, he kind of does the strings thing at a higher level, or at a larger level, meaning he plays with orchestras, but it's still his jazz style, I suppose. And so those two influences really like got to me, as well as just I just love the way strings in a lot of classical music and film music sound. Oh, surprising inspirations. I think there's a lot of unsurprising ones. A lot of jazz musicians, Chick Corea, Bill Evans, Bill Lawrence, who I mentioned. Surprising inspirations. I think a lot of pop musicians, literally ABBA. Seriously, their music inspires me so much. Bruno Mars, I love Bruno Mars endlessly. Um, I'm trying to think of more. Anomaly, really cool. Maybe that's not so surprising, but Anomaly's a really cool modern kind of EDM jazz artist. Uh, the Beatles. I think the Beatles inspire everyone. Yeah, I think maybe the surprising ones would be like Bruno Mars and ABBA and the whole Mamma Mia soundtrack. And yeah, there's a lot more that goes with that. But a lot of pop music that doesn't seem to relate to the kind of music I write, but I absolutely take elements from it and am very inspired by it. The album cover is this. It's basically like a sort of not distorted but edited photograph of some sort of ice landscape, um, and so it's just this blue baseline landscape with a path sort of carved through the middle. And it's just this black path, and it winds through the middle. And I had this pretty specific vision for it in my head, and then the artist I worked with like created it, and we made some edits and stuff, and it really just the whole thing is this very simple landscape with a path, and that encapsulates the story and the theme of Into Nowhere. Yeah, I would love to. I played it live once at this point. I did a release show for it as well as some other original stuff, and it's really fun to play live, and it's difficult to play live because it just takes a lot of preparation because it's very arranged and written out, and I think that also makes it fun because then you actually hear this live, and there's still solos in it, so there is still some room for improvisation, and I think that brings some excitement to it each time. And I'd love to keep playing it live. I did it with just a trio when I did it live, and I'd love to play live with the strings. I think that would be super cool. I think this is my first big release with this sort of project and this style of music in mind. I've released music before. I've released different pop music under different names and stuff. Um, but to me, this is my first big release with this, going this direction. Hmm. I think, musically, the the musical ideas that come to me the most naturally stem from this more classically influenced jazz style. Uh, it's the music that seems to just come to the surface every time I write, and I'm not trying to write something really. I'm not trying so hard to write something. Um, and so I think that's like there's a lot of unwritten material that wants to be written, and I don't think this is the only direction I'll go, but it's definitely one that there's a lot to explore with, and I think I can sit around all day and think about doing that and wanting to, but then actually doing it is challenging and fun and rewarding, and I think there's a lot to be explored. We recorded at Mighty Fine Studios in Denver, which is just a great recording studio. They record a lot of artists, a lot of jazz artists, and yeah, we did everything in isolation booths. We did everything in one day, and then we came back and did some edits and things like that, and did the mixing and mastering there, and yeah, it turned out to be a good recording. Another step on the jazz path. For me personally, um, that's a good question. I think, for me personally, on in this realm of music, I think the next step really is to continue writing and playing. Um, but I think I have many other steps in many different paths that aren't necessarily jazz, and I think those will all be fun projects as well. But yeah, for this type of thing, there's more to be written really, and I've just dipped my toes into like writing for strings and that whole world, and I feel like I've opened it up, and I kind of just entered it. So yeah. I think that what's on my mind now is, uh, I would love to get into scoring for media, getting into film scores and writing music for TV and video games. I think when I wrote Into Nowhere, it was inspired by my own life and my musical influences, but it all felt like a story to me, and I wanted the music to feel dramatic like a story. And I love movies, of course, and TV, and those are all stories, visual stories, and I think they inspire music to be written behind them. And yeah, I would love to go in that direction in music, uh, as well as continue what I'm doing. But I think that's also a next step. Australia was a mixture of experiences, and overall probably one of the greatest adventures I've ever been on. And I'm so glad that I went there, and it made me realize the importance for me of traveling and, uh, living in different places. It was just so like eye opening in terms of the different types of people I met and the places I saw. And I think a huge aspect of being there that I took away from it was that I actually didn't play a lot of piano when I was there. I was constantly just meeting all these people and going and traveling all through Australia and New Zealand, and the whole time I could just feel these ideas sort of like festering in my mind. To when I did come back to the piano, at first I was afraid that I was going to like lose my piano technique, but of course that was like okay. But then I just started writing things, and it just stuff came out that it would have taken me so much more effort to create the same thing if I didn't have all this inspiration. And I think it made me realize that music is like part of life, and then there's life, and to feed into the music, you also have to go live life, and Australia was that for me. Yeah, I haven't dived as much into production recently, but I it is something I've done a lot more of in the past, and I would love to come back to more from the lens of the film scoring and TV scoring, because I didn't realize how much uh, production that actually entails. I think it was in my sophomore year or late freshman year of college. I was listening to artists like Frank Ocean and Rex Orange County, and these kind of slightly more indie artists that I loved the idea, like, oh, these people created such good music with great lyrics and wonderful recordings, and they did it like in their bedrooms or in a studio or wherever. And I was like, I can do that too. Like I could. So I really experimented with writing lyrics and making these sort of pop songs with interesting harmonies and stuff that I was learning throughout school. And I just in my college dorm, and then in the first apartment I moved into, I got a vocal mic, and I got my little DAW and everything, and I made some pop songs and did some online music production courses, and it was really fun. I would love to get into that again as well. If you search Eli Theo on any streaming service, there it is. It is there. Well, so I graduated back in May, and for a while I was kind of just doing some different random jobs and whatnot, and I'm now moving out to Los Angeles in 1 month, so at the end of February, and try to go out there and meet musicians, play. I think it's a great place for the film composing and that kind of thing, and I also that really was inspired by going to Australia as well, and the realization of the importance of traveling for me, and go and just expanding myself and going to a new place, even as scary as it can feel. I've come to the conclusion that not only will I grow, but also I think it will help my music too. Yeah, if everything was perfectly lined up and I could have any, I think instrumentation would be something like the jazz trio. I think that's sort of the foundation. Well, just the trio, because it's not always jazz. And usually electric bass. I love the electric bass. And probably a couple synth players. Maybe there's me on the piano, or Rhodes doing some stuff. There's a couple synth players doing some atmospheric textures, someone doing more of the lead texture, and then it would be sweet to have an orchestra or a smaller group of string players. I would love to have both of those in different performances. I think that'd be the ultimate instrumentation. Definitely the drums. I love the drums endlessly. I think to me, especially when I write and when I play with others, the drums and the groove kind of sets the entire foundation and tone of everything for me. And I think a change in what the drums play, texturally or rhythmically, to me changes the feeling of a song almost more drastically than, or as drastically as harmony or really any other element, to a point where it sticks out in my mind personally so much. And I write a lot of my piano parts very rhythmically, and I'm constantly, especially when I first write music, thinking about the exact drum part. Like on Into Nowhere, I think I pretty much wrote out every single thing the drums were doing, except for in little spots where it was more free. Just because those parts come, I just hear them so clearly more than other instruments. And yeah, I play a lot of keyboard drums, just like for my demos and stuff, and I just think I really connect with rhythm in that way. And yeah, if I could play another instrument, it would be the drums. Well, I think there's short-term plans, playing some gigs in the next few weeks and months. I'm working with a friend right now to try to create a like an online jazz piano course for people, and that'll be kind of interesting. And then I'm going to LA. And when I start off in LA, I'm going to be doing an EMT training, which is completely non-music, but I think it'll be a fun way to work as I figure out what's going on in LA, and yeah, and all the music stuff along with that. So that's my current plans. The two experiences that stick out to me out of all the times I've played, one was probably the recent time I played my album release. That was the first show where I've really done all original music for a full set. We played the album as well as a lot of new stuff that I wrote in the past couple months, and it was an intense experience. I was nervous, more nervous than for most types of shows I play, and it was very unique in how I felt presenting my own work to everyone. And then the other playing live experience that was so unique is a time I played with a jazz trio, and then there were some horn players at the Boulderado Hotel while I was in college. It was just a random gig, and in my mind I was like, oh, this is just going to be a background kind of thing. And the group of musicians we had, just everything gelled so well that I felt like I was on this other plane of existence while I was playing, and it's like that was a moment where I connected with the drummer so heavily, and I was so blown away by, like, nothing was planned. We didn't know this was going to be anything crazy, and the music just worked so well, and it felt amazing. And then I think, I've seen a lot of groups live, but I've constantly talked about how Snarky Puppy is probably my favorite one. Every time I see them live, I am reminded of that same feeling of why I write music every single time. So that's always unique. Yeah, probably too many people to say all their names, but the musicians who played with me on my album, all of them, I want to shout out and thank you. Thank you, Alejandro and Eddie and Sam and Louie. You guys, they're awesome. Definitely my family. My parents are like, they're like by far the most supportive people in my life about what I'm doing, and they're constantly encouraging and excited for me. And yeah, I mean, I literally obviously wouldn't be alive without them, but I also wouldn't, I don't know if I'd have the confidence and the sort of ethic that I do if they didn't place that support in me. So, and there's many other people like that as well. Thank you.